For being here today. Today I'm announcing felony charges against Mark Chapman, a resident of the state of New York. Chapman repeatedly sexually assaulted and abused two victims for years while a resident of Michigan involved in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and the Boy Scouts of America. And I want to take a moment to thank the staff of my department for their great work on these cases. Danielle Hagman-Clark, our criminal division chief, Danielle Rousseau-Bennett, our assistant AG, who is specially assigned in these cases, Rebecca Snyder Cox, a victim's advocate, and Paul Carbini, another victim's advocate who works on these cases. We have a great staff here at the department. I'm very proud of their work. I also want to thank the Michigan State Police for their incredible work on these investigations, and specifically want to thank Inspector Greg Marenko and Detective Sergeant Brian Bugie. I got your name right that time, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Awesome. And I also appreciate Director Colonel Gasper's ongoing partnership with us on these matters. The schedule unfortunately didn't allow for his attendance this morning, and I really do want to send the message that here at our department and Michigan State Police, we take sexual assault cases extremely seriously. And I think it's important for people to note that, particularly in light of recent remarks that have been out there. When you go to the Michigan State Police to make a report, when you come to our department and make a report, your case will be taken very seriously. This is not a joke to us. These are people's lives, and we are determined to investigate, use all of our resources that we possibly can to investigate these cases, and where the evidence leads to charges, to prosecute these cases vigorously. And I think it's important for the public at large to know that. So most importantly, though, I want to recognize and thank the victims of these cases for their bravery in coming forward and for working with law enforcement to hold their abuser accountable for his crimes. So in June of 2021, I announced that my department was partnering with the Michigan State Police to investigate sex abuse allegations against the Boy Scouts of America that came to light during the course of the civil litigation. And my department made available a hotline, which I'll repeat now, 844-324-3374, to receive information regarding abuse within the Boy Scouts organization. Since that time, we've investigated reports made through the hotline and the claims that were filed in the bankruptcy case against the Boy Scouts organization. This investigation involved a man that we are announcing charges against today. That began as a result of a call into that hotline. Mark Chapman is alleged to have abused children for years. He threatened them with violence when they refused to participate or tried to stop him from continuing his assaults, and he is the source of their pain, their psychological scars, and their mental anguish. The abuse of victim number one began in 2000, around the time the boy was 13 or 14 years old, and continued until he was 17 years old and a senior in high school. The incidents occurred at the victim's father's house, at Chapman's house, and at the local church. Chapman assaulted victim number one at locations that left the child with no safe refuge. Chapman used his standing as a member of the faith community shared by victim number one and his family, and his involvement with the Boy Scouts of America to establish trust, and then repeatedly violated that trust by using opportunities associated with his community involvement as openings to harm victim number one. For his crimes against victim number one, we are charging Chapman with 6 counts of second-degree criminal sexual conduct, and also, all 6 counts, are criminal sexual conduct in the second degree, and they involve multiple variables, including the victim being between 13 and 15, and the defendant coercing the victim to submit by exerting his authoritative position, and or defendant effected sexual contact through force or coercion, and the victim sustained personal injury. And each of the CSC2 counts have multiple variables, as I just described. We're also charging Chapman in another case for crimes against victim number 2. Victim number 2 was a family member, around 11 years old when the abuse by Chapman began. The abuse went on for years and often occurred during times that were designated for special opportunities for Chapman to spend time with victim number 2. After receiving a tip on the hotline regarding the abuse, my department initiated an investigation into allegations and has decided to charge Mark Chapman with 2 counts of criminal sexual conduct in the first degree and 2 counts of criminal sexual conduct in the second degree for the crimes he committed against victim number 2. So that's count 1, CSC 1, person under 13. That's a mandatory 25-year minimum on that count. Count 2, CSC 1. Count 3, CSC 2. Count 4, CSC 2. Both involving a person under 13. The statute of limitations for first-degree criminal sexual assault has changed over the years from a 6-year limit to no limit at all. However, in any case where a suspect leaves the state of Michigan and no longer resides here, the statute of limitations effectively stops. And in this case, the statute stopped running when Chapman left Michigan to live in New York in approximately 2007. Up until this week, Chapman was incarcerated in New York on other child abuse convictions. Our department charged Chapman upon release to ensure he was not allowed to exit the criminal justice system before facing charges here in Michigan. And I'd like to note that the details I provided regarding these 2 victims are purposefully sparse. While victim number 1 and victim number 2 are now adults, the crimes occurred against them when they were children. And furthermore, it's the policy of my department not to name or publicly identify victims of sexual assaults. I've provided what details I can to provide information about Chapman's crimes and still ensure the anonymity of the victims in these 2 cases. Allegations of widespread sex abuse in Boy Scouts of America and the civil case against the organization brought forward information that demanded action. And these are difficult cases as they span over the course of decades and jurisdictions and demand exceptional expertise and resources. And I'd really like to make this clear because so many of the cases that we have pursued involving these large-scale operations and investigations require victims to want to participate in the criminal justice system and to feel safe in doing so, and to know, again, that these cases will be taken very seriously by us. The Department of Attorney General is a safe haven for victims. And if a person reaches out to us, we take those allegations extremely seriously. And our team is comprised of experienced investigators, prosecutors, and victims advocates with special training and years of experience with sexual assault cases. And I want to go through this because, again, these investigations and holding these perpetrators accountable, many of whom, of course, if they're not apprehended, if they're not held accountable, will go on to abuse more and more victims. And so it's not just important, of course, to hold the person accountable for all the harm that was suffered by the victims that where these incidences have already occurred, but to prevent future crimes from occurring. So I am going to go on and I'm going to talk a little bit about the staff of this office so that when people are considering whether or not they want to make a report, they should know who the individual actors are who are handling these cases. Our division chief is Danielle Hageman Clark, division chief for the Criminal Trials and Appeals Division here at the Michigan Department of Attorney General. She also serves as the department's representative for the Sexual Assault Kit Tracking Commission, the PAM Board of Directors, the PAM Legislative Committee, the Human Trafficking Commission Project Manager, and she oversees the sexual assault kit projects in Calhoun, Ingham, Washtenaw, Wayne, Kalamazoo, and Jackson counties. She previously served as the director of the Violence Against Women Project and at the Prosecuting Attorneys Association of Michigan, and in that capacity she was responsible for training prosecutors, police officers, nurses, and advocates on the issues related to the investigation and prosecution of sexual assault domestic violence, and stalking. And she is a trainer for MCOLS, the Michigan Commission on Law Enforcement Standards, and she helped to develop the curriculum for the 2-day law enforcement response to non-stranger sexual assault training. Prior to joining PAM, Danielle spent 15 years with the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office, where she was the founding member of the sexual assault team and served as the managing director of that unit. And she was responsible for the first prosecutions arising out of the untested rape kits in the city of Detroit back in 2012. During the course of her career, she was a lead attorney for the homicide unit and a member of the child abuse unit, special investigations unit, and general trial division. And she has prosecuted hundreds and hundreds of cases involving sexual assault and homicide, from directing extensive investigations, having made charging decisions and handled preliminary exams, trials, and sentencing for countless high-profile and complex multi-defendant cases. She's a member of the State Bar of Michigan and a master with the American Inns of Court. And she has served as a guest lecturer for the National District Attorneys Association, the Michigan Coalition to End Domestic and Sexual Violence, End Violence Against Women International, and the State Bar of Michigan, the Institute of Continuing Legal Education, Wayne County SAFE, St. John's Hospital. She's got a long resume. She served on many statewide groups as the expert in the field of sexual assault prosecuting, including the Campus Sexual Assault Work Group, the Pediatric Sexual Assault Kit Project, MCOL's Curriculum Advisor for Non-Stranger Sexual Assault, and the work group to provide input on updating the domestic violence personnel protection orders or personal protection orders and instructions to the state court administrator's office. So she's our lead on these cases. Danielle Rousseau-Bennett, who's here with us today, is the Assistant Attorney General leading the Sexual Assault Unit. She prosecutes cases of sexual assault, domestic violence, stalking, and homicides. She directs investigations into these cases, participates in multidisciplinary team meetings, consults and provides technical assistance to prosecutors across the state on sexual assault and other violence against women crimes. She also participates as an expert trainer for the Prosecuting Attorneys Association of Michigan, and she's got wow, this is also very, very long. I'm not going to go through it all. I'll just say that I've had cases with her and against her, and I'd rather have her on my team than try cases against her. Bridget Frost is our special agent who investigates these cases alongside with the Michigan State Police, and she's got nearly a decade of law enforcement experience. And prior to working here at the AG's office, she was a detective with the Flint Police Department, specializing in violent crime against women and children, including sexual assault, domestic violence, and child abuse. Also a very, very, very long resume. We're going to talk about our victims advocates. Why? Because it's important that people know that when you come to our department and you make a report, it's not just that you're going to get the very best prosecutors and the very best investigators, but we have advocates that are going to help you. Most people, I can't even say it takes years to get over the trauma of sexual abuse, because most people never get over that trauma. But we're here to help and to assist you and find programming for you. It's not just about investigating and prosecuting the case against your abuser. It's about helping you personally as a victim to be able to move on with your life. And so we have Rebecca Snyder Cox, who's worked as a specialized domestic violence sexual assault victim advocate in our department for over 4 years, and she's worked as a community-based and Title IX advocate previously, and has a myriad of experience, including leading the advocacy response during the department's prosecution of Larry Nassar and subsequent MSU investigation and prosecutions, among many other cases. She specialized training on trauma-informed, victim-centered prosecutions, and she travels the nation on best practices and lessons learned from advocacy, response, and large-scale investigations. And she's worked with hundreds of victims during her time at our department, and she currently supervises the advocacy staff. And we also have Paul Carbini, where's he? In the back there, who's a victim advocate assigned to our clergy abuse and Boy Scouts of America investigations. He has previous advocacy experience working with survivors of sexual assault, domestic violence, and stalking, while working at campus and community-based organizations, and he brings extensive experience of working with male survivors from his time conducting contract work with the United States Navy and Marine Corps. And during that time, he traveled to military bases around the world, conducting trainings on sexual assault, domestic violence, and stalking. And he's presented at multiple national conferences on topics of victim advocacy and working with male survivors of sexual abuse. So I bring this all to your attention because I want survivors to know this is a devoted team of experts with special expertise whose only mission is to deliver justice for victims of crimes, especially sexual assault crimes. And I'd like to again thank our partners, the Michigan State Police, for their incredible assistance in pursuing these tips that come through our hotline and from various other sources. Unfortunately, allegations of abuse in the Boy Scouts are reminiscent for us of allegations against clergy with the Catholic Church, and our department's investigation into abuse by clergy at Michigan churches is now in its 4th year, and so far has resulted in 11 prosecutions. On October 3rd, 2018, 42 Michigan State Police troopers, 5 officers from different law enforcement agencies, and 15 special agents from the AG's office executed search warrants at Michigan's 7 dioceses. And in that effort, they seized 220 boxes of paper documents and more than 3.5 million digital documents. So, as an update, here's where that investigation stands. We've completed the paper document review of all of the 6 dioceses and 1 archdiocese, including Gaylord, Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, Lansing, Saginaw, and Marquette dioceses in the Archdiocese of Detroit. Of the 220 boxes of paper documents seized, all have been reviewed by my team of lawyers, investigators, and advocates. We've completed the electronic document review of the Gaylord, Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, Lansing, and Marquette dioceses. My team has reviewed all but 245,000 of the 5 million documents we started with. We've hired and trained a full-time victim advocate to support the hundreds of victims identified in the course of the investigation. And we've also partnered with Safe House in Ann Arbor to offer clergy abuse-specific support groups because we found that male-centered support groups were difficult to find. We continue to refer the completed criminal investigations back to the respective dioceses, and we followed up with victims who have not been interviewed with a trauma-informed interviewer, including those whose cases are barred by the statute of limitations where the accused priest has died or other reason makes criminal prosecution impossible. Through the department's review of paper documents alone, 454 accused priests and 811 reported victims have been identified, and that number may change as our investigatory efforts continue. As of today, the Attorney General's Clergy Abuse Investigative Team has reviewed more than 4.75 million of the documents seized. In addition to the paper and digital documents seized from the diocese, information is also received through our tip line, and that has generated 958 tips related to abuse, leading to at least 152 police investigations, 180 victim interviews, and 285 police reports, and there remain approximately 100 open investigations that are ongoing. It remains imperative that sexual predators are held accountable, and one of my top priorities remains securing justice for survivors of abuse. And we appreciate our partnership with Michigan State Police to reach this point in the investigation and into the Boy Scouts of America. These charges are only the beginning, and I just have to say, I thank you guys so much. We could never do this work without you. Your work is invaluable, and you know, I have an opportunity at times to talk to the victims whose cases you have pursued, and they are very grateful for the excellent work of your department, and it's a phenomenal partnership between the AG's office and the Michigan State Police, and I thank you guys so much for your incredible work and dedication in assisting victims of sexual assault. And with that, if you guys would like to say anything. Oops, watch out. for this, though.
Thank you, Attorney General Nessel. I'd just like to say, and echo your sentiments, I want to thank the victims for coming forward. It takes a great deal of courage to tell your story, and I would encourage any victim that's ready for their story to be heard to notify us either via the tip line or any other means. We're ready to listen to what you have to say.
All right. And with that, I'll take whatever questions we can answer, understanding that because these are criminal prosecutions, there are probably a lot of facts we will have to be heard in a court of law as opposed to here at a press conference. Yes?
Did you say Chapman is currently housed in a New York jail? And if so, how long is he expected to be there?
So yes, he is in the New York Department of Corrections, correct? Danielle?
I'm sorry.
He's in with the New York Department of Corrections right now?
He is, the New York State Police are graciously assisting us in, the plan is for them to take him into custody from the prison hopefully today, and then extradition procedures will take place at that point. We don't have any further information on if he's been arrested at this point.
And as most of you are likely aware, when we get him to Michigan will depend on whether or not he fights extradition or not.
Have you spoke to him? Is there any remorse after, addressing what's going on with these two victims, or?
Well, I certainly haven't spoken with him, but I would tell you that any statements that were or were not made are not something that we can discuss during a press conference.
Any charges against the Church of Latter-day Saints or the Boy Scouts?
For these particular events, no.
So on both cases came from one phone call into the hotline?
That's right.
Victim number one called into the tip line, and Detective Bugie investigated his case, and through his investigation, he did find another victim number two, who graciously was willing to talk and tell his story and go forward with prosecution.
What's Chapman's relationship with the Boy Scouts and the church?
He was a scoutman.
Danielle, why don't you come up here?
Sorry.
It's all right.
Mr. Chapman was a scoutmaster for a troop in Macomb County.
And what about the church?
He just worked for the church, I believe, just odd jobs, janitorial. He wasn't a religious leader in the church, but he did work in the church and was a member of the church.
Did you say Macomb County?
Yes.
What city in Macomb County?
Roseville.
The majority of his family here?
Is the majority of his family here. He moved to New York in 2007. Family's kind of scattered, but that's where he moved in 2007, and that's where he and his wife currently are at.
I know last time you did an update, there were 3,000 claims connected to this. I wonder, what is that number now as a result? I think your last update was in July-ish.
We have received about 5,000 claims for victims who were either in Michigan at the time of the abuse, or were in a part of the Boy Scouts here and resided in Michigan, and so we're making our way through those documents.
I wonder how you guys feel. Obviously this kind of stuff has been going on for years and years. They were young children, and now many of them are adults. How does it feel to be able to finally, give them, some sort of closure, I guess, or healing as a result of all of this?
It's an honor. That's all I can say. It's an honor to do this job. It's an honor to do this job for all the victims, whether they were abused yesterday or 20 years ago. But being on the clergy abuse team and the Boy Scouts team, it's an honor.
Anything else? All right, thanks, folks.
Thanks, everybody.
Picture of the Attorney General. What?
Yeah, by the 10 point.
Danielle, would you like to give